Hey, what's up everybody? My name's Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. Today I actually have an actual sound design-y thing tutorial for you that could be interesting. I want to open up with what the Octatrack has taught me. This thing is very unique. There's nothing quite like it. And initially I was going to do a video on how to recreate an Octatrack style approach of music production on Bitwig. But there is kind of like this glitch that is within the sampler that kind of holds me back from doing that. Unfortunately, I got several hours into a tutorial and then it started not working and I was like, this isn't reliable. So what I am going to do is I'm going to teach you a way to recreate the effects or the effect approach with scenes and stuff within the Octatrack in the style of Bitwig. So if you take a look at the Octatrack itself, this is very dark. Hold on one second. Let me get over to the scene 2. You'll notice that there's this slider here. And what you can do with this is you can select between A and B up to 16 different scenes of different effect parameters, and then you can crossfade in between. And so what I want to do today is I want to teach you how to do that within Bitwig, so that way you can create either a performance effect or you can just utilize like some really cool resampling stuff. So if that sounds interesting, let's go ahead and get started. Now the premises of this, in case if you're already super familiar with Bitwig, is to use what's called effect selectors. And so what we're going to do is just that. We need an effect selector here. And what we can do in order to recreate this is, for one, start throwing effects in here. So I'm not even going to bother with using first party effects and stuff. I'm just going to use things that I think are actually going to be like freaking sick. So we can use something like Infiltrator. Let's just go ahead and pull up a random preset. It doesn't matter. We can do multiple instances of Infiltrator if we want. We can pull up stuff like Snap Heap or Multipass. So we can do something like this and then just pull up some kind of generator. Sure, doesn't matter. And then we can do another effect. You can do as many of these as you want to, which is kind of cool. But what I want to do now is maybe get into something that will be a little bit more traditional, like let's say, I don't know, ROM. So now that we have this, we can create a macro here, kind of like so, that is going to allow us to change the selection here. So we want to hold the macro and then hold up. It's backwards. You would think that you would hold it down, but if you look at this, this will select between these different sounds here. Now that we have this different selector, this is pretty much like our scenes, right? We can select the different scenes and create something, but what we want to do is we want to actually create a duplicate of this. And within this, something that is, how do you say, something that is interesting is that if you have two of these, then you're going to stack them, right? So the next piece of this would be to actually just group this effect layer. And now we have A and then we have B. So we're going to need to create another macro here to where we are going to utilize a few different things. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a mix here. And what this is going to do is we're going to turn one of these up and one of these down. And then we are going to set this to up and set this to down. And what this is going to do is create a mix between the two. Now this is great, but the problem is that one of these are always going to be on. So just know that if you want to turn this off, if you want to mix the effects in, then you can just use this as a kill option. Normally I would create a macro and like do like a kill thing, but because this is here, we can just be like, whoop, and turn it completely off. Now the next thing that we want to do, or actually what we can do is call this from A to B. And then we can rename this as like A, I guess, and then rename this as B. And the cool thing about this is that these don't actually even have to be the same effects. That's just one thing that you can utilize. But now that we have something like that, we can actually crossfade in between. And then what we want to do on the outside is we want to do scene select for both A and B. So we just need two more macros here. And then what we want to do is open this up here. And so the first one is going to map to the index. The second one is going to map to the other index. And so we will call this index A. And then we will call this one index B. And now that we have this, we can cycle through the different scenes here, as you can see, and we can pick and choose. And then now we can crossfade in between respectively. So in context, if we have like some kind of loop or something, and I'm just going to use something like this and then cycle this through. One thing that I do think that I want to add just for fun is Portal, because I think that could be kind of cool. Except what I'm going to do on Portal is we're going to have two different presets just for the heck of it. So we'll have a rhythm switch on this one, and then on this guy we're going to do I don't know, doesn't matter. Grain swells, sure. So what we can do now is we can, if you have a MIDI controller or something, we can pick these different macros and crossfade in between and have just like crazy different interactions behind crossfading in between these effect racks. So check this out. So we need to select this one, I believe, because right now it's basically just staying on the same one. There we go. Okay, we need to set this to go all the way down. And then we need to set this one to go all the way up as well, sorry, because it's not getting to the portal. So there we go. And then one thing with this as well is, you can get as crazy as you want with these different kinds of effects and whatnot. And that's part of what makes this so fun. Let me find one of my presets because they're a little bit more volatile, I think. But yeah, I think that this is just a really cool way to get a lot of different like crazy sounds and mix in between and whatnot. And because you have these different selectors that are kind of utilizing this, you can essentially create scenes. And from that scene, you can utilize even one of the tricks that I was talking about from before, to where you actually have this on a send. So we can just close this out and go right click, new effects track, and we can pull that in here and then just have this on standby. So anytime that you're working on a song or anything else of the sort, whatever, let's just say we've got a couple of different things, and then maybe let's pull up my buddy Zane's melodies or something. Doesn't really matter. But let's say we've got a song or whatever. Well, we can send everything into that effect layer here and just hit solo whenever we're ready, and then just kind of play along with that, and then we can utilize a rolling sampler to start pulling stuff out. So I don't even know if the mix is on this. Oh, it is. Okay. So, you can utilize this to kind of pull out different stuff, and you can create like insane effect racks with these in order to find different means. I will leave this for ARCANUM members in the Discord. It's not too difficult to set up, but just as a means of, hey, if you don't want to go download this, and if you're already a member, then I'll give this to you. I'll give you the setup. But I mean, yeah, it's a pretty cool thing that you can utilize, and it takes a lot of inspiration from the scene selections here. I will say that the difference between this and this, for one, is the physicality, but two, understand that there's certain things on here that you can manipulate that are sample specific, like sample pitch, repeats, time stretching, and all that are integrated within the sampler aspect of the Octatrack, and so we can't necessarily get that. But from a means of having different scenes of effects to select from and being able to morph in between the two, this is a really cool and effective way that you can kind of create something that's somewhat like that. And then if you have a controller, then you can just map that in between and have cool effect rack sliding and whatnot and get that effect. And if for whatever reason, if you don't want to use a macro in this, then something else that you can do as well is you can actually replace this with A to B, I think. I want to say is what it's called. Maybe it's mix. Yeah, I think it's mix. There you go. So you can actually just play with the mix in between both of these, and then map one to the gain and map the other, and then you can play with like a DJ fader or something if you have something like that. There's also other cool stuff that you can do, like turning on fill and whatnot, so that way the effects will only activate whenever you turn the fill on, or when you turn the fill off, the effects will activate. So I guess I can show you what that is. So and I would say, like, the reason why I want to show you this is because I'm like, get creative, right? So let's just turn this off, and let's go to globals, or is it fill? Yeah, it's globals. So let's say you want to set this to, right here you can set this to A or B or set this to play, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this on fill, and then what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to turn this off on fill. And so you can use this to toggle or whatever, but what's really cool is if you pay attention to these right here and you look at this, now with this fill button, I can kind of toggle and switch between these different racks, and then also utilize index A and index B in order to kind of switch between the two. So see, we can get some really cool like interactions like that as well. So it really just depends on how you want to control it, but try to think about different ways that you can be creative with utilizing this in which to just get some really sick stuff. So hopefully that was helpful, and have lots of fun doing that. You can put that on your master channel, or you can do it just as a sound design thing. But yeah, that's really all I have for this one. Thanks guys, I really appreciate you watching. Check out alckemy.com if you want to support the channel, or consider becoming a member. If you don't want to support me monetarily, even just liking the video and leaving a positive comment is also super helpful. There's more that I want to do with bridging the Octatrack with Bitwig, both in the hardware integration and also recreating some of the things. But yeah, it's tough. If I can find a way, I'll put it up, but I'm really keen on exploring this more and actually doing stuff with it. That will be a lot of fun. So thanks everybody. Have an awesome rest of your evening. I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe.